Hands
angle
from
there,
Nathan,
nice,
big
nice
left
kick.
kick. Here comes Jordan,
Jordan come back with those hands again.
Hey, yo, your boys back again on an evening podcast this time.
Yes,
How are you, Mr. O'Donnell?
I am fantastic. This is it's got my body combing my hair for a podcast at this hour. It's got my body clocked all kinds of fucked up. But we're on cup of tea time for this episode. Every bit of
on. No,
every bit of 9 p.m. Sunday podcast. But no, I'm doing well. I have spent the weekend in North Stradbroke Island. Little scenic trip. I left yesterday and I returned today, which is how I tend to travel around.
That was the Sea Off Super Dry Gym, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. So some of our long-term listeners will remember an episode that we did with Sandy of Quantum Cup Super Dry Gym, but many across the Muay Thai community will know Sandy and her cause too. Very well represented, runs a mental health foundation, Fighters Against Suicide. Charlie Bubb, a great example of an ambassador, and a lot of, especially the Queensland Muay Thai community, fly that flag. I've worked pretty closely with Sandy and have a very good relationship with her over the years, and we always said, she always wanted me to come up to Superjai Gym and see some of the kids she trains there. And just the last couple of years, of course, it's been pretty difficult to travel, so I never made it. But for a few reasons, Sandy's going to have to close down Superjai Gym, which has been in a number of different locations in Australia over the course of years and years, which was pretty emotional for her and the community. But she wanted to bring everyone in for a little bit of a shindig to send it off. So had 50 or so people in there sparring on Saturday, and everyone went to lunch after, which was super, super cool. As much as it was kind of an emotional day. It was heaps of fun. Everyone had a good laugh. I had some good chats with some of my Queensland friends, and Stratty is absolutely beautiful, man. I think I sent you some photos before. It's a cracker place. Like, a lot of people have never even heard of it, but yeah, Sandy took today just to drive me around the island and show me the sights. It was super, super cool. So really thankful that Sandy brought me in for that and got to kind of experience that day, because it was really important to her to get me up there, because she always said we were gonna do it, and in closing we made it happen, which was super cool. And love Sandy, love what she does. So yeah, good weekend.
Yeah, it's great to see. What was the temperature there?
It was warm in there. I had a swim. Did I? We went to the beach on Saturday. It wasn't like hot. It was super warm today, actually, but like not hot. Like probably not ideal swimming weather. But I jumped in the water yesterday and it was really nice. So it was warmer than here.
Yeah, it's like, oh man, sure. Like, you got away at, like, the coldest weekend I had for a while here.
Yeah.
So, you had the right idea.
Yeah. It was.
For Sandy, 20 years of doing great work from there. And it was worth fighting for. So
yeah, and one of the biggest things, like, the work won't stop. Quantum Cup will still be around. It's just the physical gym that will not be open anymore. So still things in the works, and still things I'm hoping to help out on in the future. But for now, just a little bit of a pause. Sandy's going to have a bit of a road trip and see some family, take care of herself for a little while. But there's more to come from Quantum Cup for sure. The mission stays the same. It's just the actual physical gym won't be around for the minute. So yeah, really cool weekend, and tons of fights on too. I caught Rebellion because I can multitask. I think I've been running a little bit of a Q&A on the Combat Chat Instagram, and there is some hot takes coming through about Rebellion and about other things. So I will probably, we never talk 1774 either. So I'll probably have to jump on and do just another recap episode at some stage this week, because there's a bit to talk about there. But of course, for now, we have an esteemed guest. So plenty to say, but park it for the minute, and we'll get on with this episode.
Yeah, for sure. There's a reason why we're doing this late tonight from there. But but no, I'm really looking forward to this one. Sure. So we do have a fighter on the other side of the line there, trained by Dave McGriffin, 3 Lions Gym out of Perth. She is the current WBC national champ. She's ranked number 4 WBC. She's ranked number 3 WMO, and she just recently captured bronze at the World IFMA Games. She is Bryony Soden. How are you today?
Hi, thank you for having me on here. I'm great.
Thanks for jumping on. I'm very busy from there, so I'm glad you made the time to come chat to us.
It's good. I've been listening to Combat Chat like literally every episode, so it's good to finally be on.
Yeah.
Is it cold as shit in Western Australia too?
Nah, not that bad.
I'm glad. Damn it.
Yeah.
That's all right. So Bryony, let's go just like very quickly over like your Muay Thai origin story. You talked about before. You can probably go more in depth if you want to listen to like the Female Fight podcast from there. But how about you, just for people that might not know you, just give us a quick little run through of how you got into Muay Thai.
Yeah. So I've always been into martial arts. I did judo from when I was 4 to 14. Parents broke up, didn't really be able to do sport. Really wanted to do it. Got myself into the gym throughout high school, just lifting weights, getting bulk, trying to get as big as I could because I just wanted huge guns. And then at the end of high school, I was like doing an intercarnival and I absolutely gassed myself out, probably ran like 800 meters. And I just knew that I was wasting my athleticism. I was wasting my youth. I was 17 years old at the time. And then I went and watched my brother fight. I've always watched him fight Muay Thai, but he always got bashed. But he fought for a new gym, and that was obviously under David McVicker. And when he walked out with confidence. He was a different person. He had like a crowd cheering for him, and he knocked the guy out in the first round. And I was like, I want to do that. Like, I want to do Muay Thai. So I asked him, and then the week later, I went and did it. First lesson, Dave told me I had potential, like from day dot, and I literally trained every day since. And then after 10 months, I had my first fight, and it's just been a steamroll ever since. Yeah.
Nice. It's like it's kind of quickly propelled as well. It's like it's a pretty impressive like resume for fights that you have so far. We'll go through a bunch of stuff today, but in particular, I noticed like some stuff that you posted, like a bit of like body transformation, but also like not just for the goals of physique looking, but also performance in Muay Thai also. So how about you go over that a little bit, like how it's like the strength and conditioning has helped your performance?
Yeah. So when I first started out with Muay Thai, even at my own gym, we didn't really have like any idea. Like I had no idea what I was doing. And I reckon like for my first 10 fights, I was walking around at 53, 55, fighting at 53, 55, eating like 1,000 calories a day. Like I just had no idea. I thought that was normal. And then COVID hit, and like during COVID, I actually like ate food and I like started to put on some weight. And like just before COVID hit, I also had a fight in Thailand at like my walk around weight. And it was just like, it all just hit me like, what am I doing? So I reached out for a nutritionist, and she actually started feeding me every like 2 to 3 hours, which blew my mind at the time. And take in mind, I'm studying nutrition at uni. Like, it's so weird how you just don't know when you're in that. And people talk about with Muay Thai, like you've got to be tough. So I thought I was just doing it the tough way. And then over time, I think it was around probably June 2020, just before my 10th fight. Yeah, that was my first fight for Free Freeze. I decided I'm going to invest in a strength coach. I'm going to invest in boxing and nutrition. I'm going to do this like for real. Max gave me good advice to invest in the fighting first. So I invested in the nutrition first and the boxing first. And that came along really nicely, and I saw results. And at the end of the year, I got the strength training on board as well. And you can just see, like, if you watch my fights from Muay Thai Grand Prix over time, I've gone from 55 to 56 to 57. And you can see the progression of just like my build in general, but also my power and my explosiveness and my speed. Yes, that is a combination of like learning my technique better and consistency at the Muay Thai gym, but I think the investment into strength training has had a huge impact, as well as nutrition. Like, I've done it nonstop, and it's been able to have like that base of commitment to strength training outside of Muay Thai. You're always doing strength training no matter what. You're not out of fight camp when you're strength training. So that was able to give me the consistency that I needed to treat this sport as professional as I could, 365 days of the year. And yeah, it's been one of the best things for my career. And it just wanted to mention, like, I do with everything when I'm teaching techniques, when I'm talking about strength training and investing in the boxing, nutrition and all that. It takes years before it starts to show.
Yeah.
So I didn't find that power until probably 2.5 years after starting. So yeah, I'm very grateful for taking them steps that early on in my career as well. Yeah.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, with the strength stuff,
Yeah.
strength conditioning itself, when you first started, like, and like myself, like doing strength conditioning, a lot of athletes, did you find yourself having like did you find it tedious, like I'd rather be hitting stuff or better running, or did you find that you kind of like really gel with it straight away?
So when my mindset towards everything, like, we live in this generation where we think that we do something and we expect the reward straight away. You can't be like that. You got to think the long term. So that's what I'm like. I just got to put in more rounds. I've just got to show up and, do it. And then eventually it will prevail. I reckon the number one influence for me to do strength training was Chelsea Hackett. Like, I was watching Chelsea Hackett's Muay Thai fights and she's just knocking people out. I was like, I want her power. She's a short midget, like, compared to who she fights. And that's what happens to me. She started strength training when she was like 14, 16. When she turned 18, she was literally needed one punch and people were falling. So I was like, that's a prime example. I just got to stick at it.
And you touched on a couple of things there when you're discussing, like, I really like the way you talk about kind of investing in the individual facets of what you want to pursue. I think that really just ties into that concept of, and probably something that just by nature of the way we approach Thai boxing is that it's not, it's very few people's full-time endeavor. I often feel people struggle to approach it like a professional, and that's what separates that upper class of fighters from the rest, is the ones that are willing to be professionals and not kind of approach it like a hobby. Like, I think that's something that I see in a lot of people that can't make that move to the higher levels, is because they're unwilling to not do it as a hobby. And a lot of the time that comes from a mentality of like, I go to work during the day and I go and train at night, so it's a hobby. But that's just kind of like the sad reality, right? Is like, you've got to, although the rewards are not the same, if you want the same results in Thai boxing, you have to approach it like a professional athlete. So I'm interested, a couple of questions I have just from listening to you sort of explain that. Interested to hear you go further. So you mentioned that you're working with a boxing trainer in addition to a strength and conditioning coach, in addition to, of course, David and Three Lions. Walk us through a little bit. And you also touched upon studying at uni there, so sounds pretty full on. Would you walk us through kind of like, what's your schedule? How do you fit in all parts of your training?
Oh, like my week?
Yeah, where does it all fit? Because I guess the other thing is, like, a lot of people will not pursue, for example, people who are working and or studying and training will kind of be like, okay, I don't have time to do strength conditioning sessions alongside Muay Thai, so I'm just going to double down on the Muay Thai and that's all I can do. So how does it all fit in?
Yeah, so I always separate my sessions at least 6 to 8 hours in between, just because of the adaptations and stuff like that, and making sure my nutrition and I refuel and recover. So I'll just explain my week. So Monday to Tuesday, I train Muay Thai for 2 hours every night.
Yep.
Certain nights we have to run, certain nights we have to sprint. And then on a Saturday morning is our like big sparring session. So that's my Muay Thai. That's 5 sessions a week. This is in camp. When I'm in camp, I'll also do a boxing PT once a week in the mornings.
Yep.
But if I'm out of camp, I will remove that boxing PT and probably do 2 to 3 boxing sparring sessions a week where I'll rack up at least 30 rounds with the boxers.
With competitive boxers.
Yeah. So like I'll literally drive from boxing to Muay Thai on the same night just so I can get those extra reps in. So that's that side of things. I'll always train strength training twice a week on a Tuesday and Friday morning. So that leaves me Monday, Wednesday, and Friday afternoon to do this is what I do for my conditioning. I'll do a track workout, which involves sprints. And then I'll also do longer interval, like fresh hold training. And then I'll also do pyramid training as well, where like I get myself in certain heart rate zones. And that is periodized according to where I am in camp and where I am outside of camp. And on different modalities, depending on like, sometimes my feet are fucked and I can't be on my feet so much. So I'll use different things like bikes and stuff as well. But it's all like planned out to a T, so I can easily move my life around it.
Yeah, cool. And what I'm always interested in is like, you got a lot of people working on kind of making you better. And I suppose, I mean, like, describe how kind of you allow the different parts of your training to, I guess, communicate. So I guess like you'd probably think your strength trainer needs to understand where your heavier days are in Muay Thai, and kind of vice versa as well. Like, how do you kind of get all sides communicating to make sure that you're kind of optimizing that schedule?
So I have my close friends on Instagram. I literally put my training sessions heart rate monitors on there so they can see it on the day. Always communicating to my trainers. So I got Dave, Josh, and Paul, and I literally will let them know on the day how I'm feeling. With my strength coach, I'll literally like oversharing to the max, just voice message, this is what's going on, keeping them updated. And then with my boxing coach, the same thing. It's just communication. Yeah, and using technology. I just use close friends on Instagram so they can see everything. Yeah.
Yeah, I use my close friends list on Instagram like really, really differently, but that's how
I use it for training. That's funny.
But yeah, each to their own, I guess.
Exactly. Each their
Oh.
own. So, Bryony, so you talked about investing in the boxing coach from there. So, how did you come across this to add the boxing coach in, and who is your boxing coach?
So, for something, I have a thing for like British trainers. Hey, like my coach is from England and this guy's from England.
Well, in fairness, half of Perth is, but yeah.
Yeah. So he originally like did PTs and stuff back in Mandurah in the day, and that's when like Dave was also like starting up when he first came to Australia like 7 years ago. It was out of like a gym, like Body Appeal, like a commercial gym, and so they knew each other at the time, and Dave was doing Muay Thai classes there, so they were communicating at the time about opening a gym. He wanted to open a gym in Mandurah, Dave wanted to open a gym in Port Kennedy, so they ended up like opening their own gyms, but they're still good mates. Josh Day, who you've had on the podcast before, and Beck Rooney from WA, she fought 57, they both would do boxing PTs with him, and like I knew that if he can do boxing PTs with other Muay Thai fighters, that I'd be fine as well. So I reached out to him and we just gelled straight away. He didn't change my stance. He kept everything, like technique-wise, he didn't tell me anything different. I just did what Dave did. So he didn't change my hook, didn't change my jab, didn't change my cross. We work on what Dave tells him to work on for me. Lots of combos, lots of level changes, angles, close range boxing, long range boxing, like everything that can work in Muay Thai, but it can also work in boxing. I think a lot of people, my brother always in my ear, because he has had like 16 Muay Thai fights, so I still listen to him. He would always tell me to make sure I have like a open mind and look at what other sports are doing and bring it in. Like, don't always just be Muay Thai. Like, you don't always have to stand there and be strong. Like, use your angles, use your footwork, to take on board other sports. So that's the type of mindset I have. So when I do go there, even if he starts making me jab to the body, I'll just do it. But yeah. He's a good boxing coach. So we gelled straight away. I like him. Yeah.
It's a smart way of doing stuff. Like you just thinking out of the books. You might not use it all, but like
Yeah.
it's good to have it when you do need it. Like it's like your brother said, like you don't have to be there strong all the time. Sometimes you got to move a bit. This is
Yeah.
plenty. Yeah, so it's not always just here. You gotta move in a bit of angles and that. And I don't know, maybe sometimes it might give you more opportunities if it's later on you go, I want to take a boxing match or take a or a
100%.
kickboxing match.
I could do boxing right now and I would be fine, I reckon. And that just goes to show the not only the level of coaching he has, but the level of the sparring partners I get access to. Like the boxers I spar with have 30, 40, 50 plus amateur fights. Like I'm literally like in the deep end when I go there, and I'm so grateful for it. And it's literally 15 minutes down the road. Love it.
And you made one idea that you've put forward that I'm interested to expand on is not too rigidly trying to adhere to kind of like a quintessentially Thai boxing approach and allowing it to kind of borrow from other areas. So you're doing that with, by going into, sort of pure boxing training. Is there any other kind of like, I guess, in your core kind of Muay Thai training, do you feel like it's somewhat non-traditional? Like how else do you borrow ideas from other sports to kind of develop your style?
Just like if I see something, I'll always try it. Like for example, I'm from a gym where like Dave has his own set things that he's learned and he'll teach me, but they're not always going to work and they won't always work my style. But then I have Josh, who's got like more an evasive style. He knows weird stuff, but sometimes it's not going to work for me. And then I have like Paul, but they've all got these different things and I'm always open to trying them. Like I'm not going to stick myself in the box and call myself a certain thing. If that makes sense. And I've always had an open mind like that, but I'm never going to spin to win, just saying. None of that.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing because I would probably be described by most people who train or most people in the gym as somewhat classically Thai. That's always been my interest. I like Muay Thai and I like boxing, for example. I don't watch tons of that's the combat sport that I watch is Muay Thai. But at the same time, I do feel sometimes in particular, possibly as Westerners who are trying to adopt a style from fighters who have been training since they were 6 years old and had 400 fights. I think we can get stuck in a trap of trying to achieve their level by doing what they do because it's never going to be the same. That's probably one of the best lessons that I've learned is that, like, yes, you can look at how a Thai trains and I understand it. You can feel like, well, he's the best in the world. So if I do what he does, I will pursue being the best in the world, but the setting is just completely different. And there's lots of different avenues we can take off of that in terms of how we keep ourselves injury-free. Copying the Thais is not always going to be the best idea. They just have a different level of adaptation from training that long. But another one I'd be keen to get your thoughts on is where I borrow ideas from other sports is in like purely non-technical things. Like I feel other sports study better than Thai boxers do. And also not just Thai boxers, but combat sports in general. Like I go down these rabbit holes sometimes of watching basketball scouting reports. And I don't watch basketball. Like I do sometimes, but like I don't follow basketball super closely. I am fascinated by the way that they analyze the opposition and the way that it's like so scientific and so like almost like it's mathematical. It's like you watch these guys like pause a frame and they're drawing on the screen. And it's just you think like we look at how we study for Muay Thai and it's like, oh, if he kicks you, you kick him. It's not like it's not minute and detailed. It's just like stand there and hit him harder than he hits you. Like, how do you kind of like explore kind of like your, where have you taken ideas from in terms of the way that you study and the way that you develop yourself, I suppose, non-physically, if that makes sense? Is that something that you're into?
Yeah, I know what you mean. I think like I'm someone who I listen to a lot of different podcasts and stuff, but I feel like they all
This one, of course.
apply to Muay Thai in like fighting in general.
Yeah.
I could give an example. Like the other day, I was listening to one of the Gracious brothers for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and he was talking about one of the matches he's won and how his mindset went into it, and how he watched his opponent break down and make consistent mistakes throughout the match, and how he capitalized on them. And like I watch and trying to understand their mindset and the way they speak about things, and how can I apply that to Muay Thai, even if it's not the same sport, if that makes sense. Yeah,
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the idea. Like I feel I have a somewhat similar approach, or it's not even really an approach, but just the way like I've really taken to, I was never like a huge sports fan. Like a lot of people who pursue becoming an athlete of any kind are just generally fans of sports, but I have always kind of just been, I like Muay Thai and I don't really follow anything else in sporting or otherwise. But I've really taken to listening to, especially athletes, but high performers of all kinds, just explain their mental approach, because I guess the idea I'm touching upon earlier on is, I think in Muay Thai we can often be like, what is Muay Thai is what we should follow and everything else is irrelevant. We can be a little bit too stubborn about kind of like keeping ourselves in that box of like doing what the people around us do. And of course, like most of the ideas that you're going to borrow from the most directly are going to come from elite level Muay Thai, of course. However, like as you touch upon, I feel there are lots of different areas of just exploring like mental capacity and competitive edge, and even if you want to call it sports psychology and things like that, there's all these different ideas. Like I was listening to a podcast with a competitive cyclist the other day, and I almost think the unique perspective of it having nothing to do with Thai boxing can actually make it more beneficial, because you know you and I are probably quite similar in the sense, like I listen to a lot of podcasts. I also make a lot of podcasts about Muay Thai. And so like you can almost start to, it almost like there's a lot of this, it's the same frequency all the time. It's like you're hearing a lot of the same ideas and you can almost kind of like start to tune it out. But forcing yourself to kind of frame that within something that is entirely different, I really feel like can kind of be that little bit of that bit of a light bulb, and make you kind of go, oh no, that's something that I can borrow from there.
Yeah, it's a different voice.
Yeah,
like,
definitely.
Sometimes you need a different person to say the same thing before you actually hear it.
Yeah, and it can be. What I also find interesting is the way that listening to someone who comes from a world that is so different to Muay Thai, and hearing them explain an idea, and you're like, the way that you say that, you could be a fighter saying it, but you're talking about cycling or rock climbing or snooker or something that's like completely different to Muay Thai, but like you feel like you could be at the table with them having a conversation and you could agree. I think it's interesting to pull all this stuff back to like a really broadly human kind of level and be like, no, there is a point where a performance mindset is a performance mindset, regardless of what you're setting out to do.
My mind coach is actually an ex-taekwondo athlete, and everything he talks about, even though it's not Muay Thai, but all his experiences and his qualifications that actually work so well and ties into what I do and how it shapes my training, even though he's comes from a taekwondo background.
Okay, so on that, talk to me about the mind coaching. How long have you been pursuing that? What kind of drove you? A year. Yep.
So I chose to do mind coaching after I did the first IFMAs. I won my first fight. I lost my second fight against Tira Brandt. She's about to fight Shannon for the WBC world title, which is brilliant. Had like 60 plus
she's
fights.
A great fighter. Yeah.
Lost the fight because I was in my own mind. So I got a mind coach. And ever since then, I talk to him once a month, but it's once a month of like, you have somebody who's outside of your circle, who you're able to like completely be honest with, who has like tools for you to use. And it's just, something fresh. Also like keeps you accountable in the things that you do. I've got it in my journals, like specific like lessons that we've done. just like he'll pick up on the like, okay, so one of the biggest things is like the way I use my words and the way I speak about things. So I'm able to make sure reframe what my trainers say to me for it to be able to not come to me in a positive light, but for it to be more beneficial and for it to be more effective. So we have certain words for certain things that I need to be doing, and I'm able to perform much better. Just simple things like that. Man, I always get asked about my mind coach, and I just completely forgot like how great it is. Yeah, it's a lot about communication and the way you speak to yourself and the way you communicate to your trainers. I really wish I had my book in front of me right now.
That's okay. Well, like,
yeah,
going off the IFMAs a bit there anyway.
yeah.
So taking from your first experience to your second experience, what was your mind frame like? Like, how were we speaking to yourself, like out the back there with your coach? Was it different than the first time you went around?
Okay, so this is wild. So IFMA's the first time, it showed me, like that was the first time me being able to, one, actually have the opportunity to fight people like that level. I would not have that opportunity if I didn't take myself. I wouldn't be able to rise to the occasion, as you say, if I didn't go there. So that showed me that. It showed my potential. It showed me that, you know, I can hit hard. I'm strong. I'm got the athleticism there. All I need to do is put in more rounds, more reps to get to that color bar a bit more, get more experience. So from there, I was like, I'm coming back next year. And it was very confident boosting being able to be in the ring with Tira, because mentally I knew that's why I lost that fight. And if I just fixed that or just grew, got more experience, I could have won that. So I went with confidence into the next fight. Got that fight against Megan Burbrick, and then fought Tiff, and then fought Judy, and then here I am at the next IFMAs. But you'd think that, I feel like the universe will keep repeating the same lessons until you learn it. And this IFMAs just has blown my mind completely. So what I learned from this IFMAs is sitting and actually, because I got to go with a team of 11 people, and I got to go with my best friend Shannon, I got to go with Damon Nelson, Sam Gardiner, Michaela Jorgensen. So they're the WA athletes. Some of them are like world class, some of them are just new to the sport. So I got to see like the different ways people carry themselves, the way they speak to themselves, the way they warm themselves up, the way they cut weight. And keep in mind, at this time, the fights that I've had on Muay Thai Grand Prix, I've got to warm up alongside people like Neve Kinahan, George Jarvis. So I've got to watch how world champions get themselves ready for battle. So like, I'm starting to really observe and take notes on how people carry themselves. So how can I emulate that myself? This IFMAs, I learned like how important it is. Do certain people need to listen to music before they warm up, or do certain people need to like stretch extensively? Some people don't need to do anything at all. Sometimes something can happen that's unplanned. Are they able to snap out of it? The chaos at IFMAs is ridiculous. 1 minute you're fighting, the next minute you're not fighting for 2 hours. Like, and you need to be able to be mentally strong. Like one day you might have an easy weight cut, the next time it's going to be absolutely nuts. Like this, it teaches you mental resilience and makes you realize that like the stuff that we do with professional fighting is so much more easier in certain ways. But that's what this IFMAs taught me. And even watching, because I got to watch Max fight last weekend on Muay Thai Grand Prix. I got to record all his backstage stuff, and Max has been really close to me since I started. Like, even though his trainer's my coach, Max is pretty much my coach too. Like, he's taught me everything. How to be from like a 17-year-old girl to a 21-year-old woman, as a fighter and just as a person in general. So I got to watch him warm up, and like the better you get, the less time you need to warm up. The way he carried himself, finding out that his opponent changed 2 days before the fight, just his calmness and his confidence, just on the night. And I don't know, it's just really interesting seeing that aspect, and now I'm really aware of it, and I just yeah, I can't wait for my next time I go into the ring to be able to like be aware of what really works for me, because I'm 20 fights in now, and you start to like this is how I think of fighting. Like you see nothing, and then it slowly expands, and every time you fight, you see more. And it's not just about the fight; it's about the people that are in your corner. It's about the preparation. It's about everything. So the mental side of preparing for a fight in general is definitely something I learned about this IFMAs, and how crucial it is to be able to be mentally resilient, be able to turn it on. Like, what do you do to turn it on before you get in the ring? Like, do you need, I was talking to Damon about it. So Damon gave me a good advice. Like, when you're hitting pads before a fight, some days it's going to feel shit, and you just have to accept that. Like, it's only a bonus that you have a good pad hit out. Some people don't hit pads before they fight. I don't know. It's just a topic I've never really heard anyone speak about until I just started asking questions. Yeah. Okay. There's my little rant.
I like it. So I guess I'd like to go into that a little bit more. I think you're touching on something interesting there. So how much have you changed what you'll do before you get, if you look to what you're doing in kind of your early fights to what you're doing now, how much has what you like to do before a fight kind of changed? Is it taken on, are you making little tweaks? Have you really kind of drastically?
Yeah, even within the 5 days at IFMAs, my first fight, I was ready probably a bit late, and my body was I was too mellow, so it took me a long time to warm up in the ring. The second time I was ready, I didn't even get to hit pads before I went out, and then the third one I was ready way too early. So I had an experience of both, all of the types within 5 days. But I know for professional fighting, Max's approach, confident, less is best. Just need to find that sharpness. And if you don't have good pads, it's okay. You're never going to be 100% with professional fighting. I'm always 100%. I'm never sick. I'm never injured. I never have a hard weight cut. Everything is perfect. IFMAs, my leg was messed up. The first fight, I was thinking halfway through, I have to fight another southpaw tomorrow. And that's all I could think about. And I was starting to gas because I was thinking about my injured leg. And then the fight after that, ready. I was chilling way too much, too calm. And then all of a sudden I had to fight. So calm, collected, hit pads. If it doesn't feel great, cool. You've already done the work 6 weeks beforehand. Just get in there, do your thing. Switching on. I think that switching on, I've only, in my last fight, 1 out of 20 fights, I haven't switched on. So that's something I'm going to be interested in thinking about going forward.
And talk to me about what switching on means to you.
Being realizing you're actually there to fight and you actually need to hurt them. You can't give, and it's I'm one of those people, when I fight, I'm fully focused and you can see my eyes switch on. I was sealing the ring and my feet weren't in the right spot, and I noticed it. I was noticing things that I'm usually tuning out. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. That's a good way, because I mean, I'm interested to hear you sort of describe that, because I think what I've found kind of when you talk about how to warm up and everyone's got their different idea, is that I really feel like whatever you do to warm up really doesn't make that much of a difference to the fight, right? But it is every individual person's vehicle to, as you say, switch on. Some people need to kick those pads and that's how they get. And people that have fought on, especially as I've become more experienced, people I've fought on the same show as have noted, I've done some absurd fight preps. I've wandered into the venue, right, chucked a groin guard on, I'm good to go. Are you going to stretch? Nah. And I just, because I've had fights where I did nothing to warm up, actually nothing. I'm walking around most of my fights now, you got a full whack crew, so I'm kind of limber enough in there, because I showed up, I got my shorts and I felt, I'm good to go. And it's one of the things that kind of the biggest lessons that I've learned is that it doesn't matter what you do in that moment, and that the more importance you attach to that process, the more potential. Because if you're like, wait, I want to do my whatever I do on the pads, that's now you're giving yourself that little bit of doubt
And
to go.
when you're fighting like day after day, you want to feel that feeling again. That's what made me so aware of it. Like I'm like, I want to feel like I did for the last fight, and I wasn't feeling that way.
And it's this weird thing that you've just got to be where your feet are. That's the most important thing. And that it's like, you feel it when you're there, but the more you consciously want to be there, the further you are away. And I don't know if that makes any sense, but it makes sense to me that it's like the second that you can notice that, like, you know, you're still in the ring and you notice the feeling of the canvas under your feet and you understand, oh, is this how I always do it? Is this what I usually look like? That's when you start to step away. You're not like, when things are going, well, for me, but I guess it's different for every person, but when things are good, everything is kind of just second nature, because you have, and that's a big part of it for me, is like the best performances, and like there might be wins or there might be losses, but the best, most like the best put together you can be are the ones where you kind of give something away. Like, you just like, you know, that's a big part of like the conversation with myself, is like, the work at this point is done. And to me, a big part of it is like, what will be now. All I can do is show up and be who I am. And that's like, it's another interesting conversation that I've had. Is like, a big part of that for me is almost like if I'm out at this is going to come across as probably pretty interesting to some people, is like, a big part of it is like, if I'm in a fight and I'm thinking like, I have to win, I have to win, or there's winning, that's the same thing. That's conscious thought. Like, I'm stepping away, I'm creating that pressure that it's like, you know, when you're on the tightrope, if all you think about is falling, pretty quickly you fall. That's that same thing. Is like, I actually, of course, like, to me, it's become a lot more about like, in training, there is only winning. I'm only training to win. When you kick the pad, you're never kicking the pad hard enough. You're never doing, always go a little bit further, because all there is winning. All of that for me these days, I have found, has to build to a moment where you're like, now at this point, if I've really checked every box and I've done everything I could do, now what will be, will be. Now what will be, because I've prepared myself as best I possibly can to win. And you'll know if you didn't. Like, you can't, at that moment when you're, you know, as they say, like, in the chair, like, you probably at IFMAs, it's very much like that. You got that time to like just sit and wait for your turn. Only you know whether you did the work. And that it's like, for me, it's become a lot more in recent years about just being like, now what happens, but all I can do is show up. And
so for professional fights, that's what I'm like. But it's just like, you get sucked into the chaos and you forget that you're like, you've just done 8 weeks, 12 weeks of hard, intense training, and you do, all you can remember is that like you fought 2 days ago and your legs banged up. Like, it's a different feeling, but definitely wish I could reframe it in my brain like that at the time.
Well, I've always been really impressed by the whole thing. Like, I've never done the IFMAs, never done that like tournament style, but like, where we talked on the podcast, I feel for a fighter, like, that is the best way to tune in, that just show up and switch it on at the time, because you don't have this big perfect build up where you know, you took the day to relax and you showed up at the venue and everything builds to this one fight. It's like, I think fighters get better when they learn to kind of not pedestal the moment too much. And when you're fighting day by day by day, every moment cannot be pedestaled. It's like an emotional, like, you're torturing yourself there, because the second that you get out of that ring, you've got to be thinking about the next one. You can't like let yourself kind of like soak that up, or just kind of like sit with that fight. That has to be over the second you get out of the ring. And maybe you agree, that's a pretty good mentality to take into a professional fight too, is just to be like, emotionally detached from that fight. What did I do well? What did I do well? What did I do poorly? What's going to take me into the next one? And then just, luckily in a professional fight, it's not in 12 hours, it's in a few weeks. You can let your bruises heal.
So that's what I try to explain to people, why IFMAs are so worth it. Like, I know we're not getting paid and we're actually banging our bodies up at our own cost, and we have to pay ourselves to get there. But it is so worth it for that very reason. Like it definitely teaches you things that sometimes fighting professionally can't.
And do you think you'll continue to pursue the IFMAs alongside pro fights? Is this something you want to do again?
Yeah, well, didn't Yolanda do most of them? Like Brandon Spain's done some. Like I think I'll continue doing it. 100%. Like it's hard. I've stalked Janet Todd and Jackie Buntan. 90% of their fights have been at IFMAs.
Yeah,
that's USA way, but like
it's often how it goes in the US.
Yeah, I don't like. I want to be in this sport because I want to become like literally the best version that I can be, and it's something that challenges me. Why would I say no to that?
Yeah, and do you find it's a difficult stylistic adjustment?
Yes. I love power shots. Like my third fight against the Russian, the one I lost to, I was just looking for that one power shot, and that's not going to win at IFMAs. And I had to lose that way to learn that way. Like every single shot I was getting hit by didn't hurt from them. It just looked like it was scoring because it's so tippity tappity. You've got to have volume. You've got to have work rate. Watching Shannon fight IFMAs, I was like, what the hell? Who is this? Like, that's not the Shannon I know. She fights a completely different style when she's at IFMAs. It's a completely different. Yeah, it's hard. I like it.
And do you make many changes to how you train in the lead up to an IFMA event?
Yeah. So that's what it's actually quite mentally challenging. So physically easy, mentally changing that, like volume, not looking to fight like a Muay Thai fighter, because the toughest person wins at IFMAs, not like the best Muay Thai fighter. It's work rate. It's definitely hard.
Yeah. And so in terms of like, is that just, do you do anything differently, like structurally in your training?
Like,
or it's just
the way Dave holds pads for me, because he's from the UK, he knows how to do those tournament style type of things. And Max has won gold at IFMAs before. So he knows how to hold pads for me in particular. And then I just emulate that with my sparring. And my sparring partners are like, what is going on, Bryony? You're so different. I'm like, yeah, I have to do this weird stuff. But yeah. If you watch closely, this is what they do at IFMAs. They'll throw like a 1-2 kick and they'll grab on and they'll just knee. Most of them win their fights like that. It's not the beautiful technique. It's not smart IQ setting things up. It's just go, punch, kick, grab on, knee, ref stops it, and again. Yeah.
It's a different kind of tactics game, right? It's just making sure that you're scoring those kind of like touch points almost super visibly, and then like visibly nullifying what's able to come back.
Yeah.
So to switch gears slightly, another one I wanted to make sure I discussed with you while we had you is, I know you're quite into kind of like journaling and kind of documenting your training, mapping your progress, holding yourself accountable. Talk us through kind of what your process is like there, how you feel it's helped you. Explain the concept of your Muay Thai Bible.
Wait, I want to make this a thing one day. So we're gonna make it like an actual. I'm actually gonna make a book one day. I'm gonna sell it. So
put me down for a pre-order.
I've done this since 2020. Just the start of. After the COVID lockdowns, and I've continued it consistently ever since. And I'm talking, you can see my night sessions, what I've worked on for this entire fight camp to a T, the fight, what worked in the fight, how it can correlate to how I won the fight, like everything, the progression. I'll literally open up a page and be like, oh, Dave's taught me this pretty much every night for the past 3 months and I'm still not listening, kind of thing. So what I do is, after training, I'll go home straight after training while I'm eating my dinner or while I get in bed. It's literally a habit now. So you can habit stack it between you when you do something to more likely to be able to do something. So write the date. Often it helps when I write how many weeks out I am from the fight or what stage I might be in. Like I call it fun month training when I'm not training for a specific person, but we've got these techniques that I must add into my game and not let myself stagnate. I'll write who like told me what the technique is. So it could be like literally something simple as like maybe when I'm elbowing, I'm pulling my hand down and leaving my face completely exposed. Or it could be, for example, when I fought Shannon Peake, she liked to jab and she'd step. Every time she jabbed, she'd step. So practicing chopping that front leg, not only chopping that front leg, but like after a while she'd get used to that. So starting to switch it up and go inside, go high, then low. And then I might annotate it and bring it to what fighter does this well. Like Neve Cunningham will kick low, kick middle quite well. And I'll have that all laid out for me. And because I'm doing, like, I will literally write the same thing. If I get told the same thing the next night, I'll write it again, because it's not only solidifying by my trainers, but by me as well. So why I do it is because my trainer, he works full time. He gets up at 6 every day and finishes work at 6. He drives an hour back. When he holds pads for me, he's absolutely exhausted and he can't mentally be switched on most of the time. Sometimes he is, sometimes he isn't. And even my other trainers, they need to know what I need to be working on. And it's my responsibility to be switched on and be aware of what I'm working on and what I need to get better at, and to tell them, it's not their responsibility to have a list in their own head of Bryony needs to work this, Bryony needs to work that. So I keep them accountable to making sure that I'm continually working on whatever they've told me that they've probably forgotten. So most of the time they forget. And doing that has just made me get better and better. It's so simple. Just continually going back to that mentally by writing it down and writing those things down, get the same messages. And it's worked wonders for I teach kids for the past 3 years, and the ladies class, some days you just don't know what to teach them. You can whip it up. That's what I can teach, even for PTs. When I have seminars, I'll take photos of the technique in my journal and I'll put it in a handout. So this is what I'm teaching you today. It actually works. I've used it in training and then it's worked in fights. And here's the actual annotation of my notes when I've done it. So yeah, that's what I do.
Yeah, I think like the overarching, I journal like a nutcase. I probably wouldn't even begin to explain some of the systems that I've come up with. Maybe I will. There's some that might make sense. But I think the overarching idea that I like the most there is that as fighters, it's an individual sport, and like you are in charge of your own development basically, as much as like you have to entrust your training to your coach. You are the only person, and this is just like no one is capable of being 100% across your psych and your development and where you're at. But it's also like there is a way to engage with something that you were taught that only you can do, like in terms of taking that down. And I also think taking an idea away from the gym and sitting with it is really the best way to understand it comprehensively, because like your perspective changes. Like I've been told a lot of things by my, like our training style at Sitsathon, for example, it's very, very under the pump kind of intense. It's like you're getting told things while you're getting the shit slapped out of you. It's like you're not going to have you're not going to like be able to really get the full breadth of an idea when you're getting told something like under that like pressure, because like our training is really, really designed to mimic the pressure of a fight. You're told some of the biggest insights while you're getting the shit beat out of you, for lack of a better description. So like you have to take that. For me, what that is about in large part is taking that idea home and really take, like I am reasonably like, I train fairly emotionally, I would say, and I'd say that's something that like I have to check myself on sometimes. In that, like, you have to take the emotion away from what you're doing and really just sit with it. It's almost like take it home when you've cooled down and you're thinking with a little bit more clarity, and then really try to like unpack that idea, because like in the moment, it's really, the idea is tied to the emotional response. You're not going to kind of consciously engage with that. You're going to kind of lose it to that wash of emotion.
So probably around like 12, 13 fights experience, when I was just starting to like actually eat, I was still experiencing like during training I'd break down and cry. Like I haven't done that in like 2 years. I'd literally be so emotional and get offended that I'm not getting it right and start crying. Now I'm just like, shit, not getting it right tonight, but I'm going to write it down in my book. And because I've written it down in my book, it's going to be there for me to reference, and I'm just going to get better at it the next day. Does that make sense? I've been able to compartmentalize in that sense.
No, that's a huge one. Like, I think when I say that I can be like kind of like emotional in my training, I think that it's like if I'm told something in the moment where I'm in front of my trainer, it's not speaking to an idea, it's speaking to myself. So that idea is not an idea, it's my own weakness. And it's like, that is something that like, that's where feedback can be. You want to make feedback as productive as possible. And so I have to be able to take that home and put it down onto paper where I'm not speaking, like that moment is no longer the here and the now. So I can almost look at it as a neutral third party. And that's where I'll start to pull and glean some actual kind of like productive ideas from that, is because like, I'm not thinking of it like, oh, I didn't do this right, I suck. I'm thinking about this is how I did it in that moment, and this is how you can do it a little bit differently. It is quite similarly to going back and watching yourself fight is very different to being in the ring. Like you have to let yourself take that bird's eye view sometimes. And I think journaling is a huge part of that.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
And for me, I think I'd be interested to see how this kind of like, what I like, my journaling has really come from, I've always been like just like a little bit of a dork, and I learn ideas really well from writing them down and from kind of like building upon them, or using that as a reference point to go and find some study material and sort of tying them together. So like, this is what I was told in training, and he's a fighter who's very good at that kind of idea.
Yes,
and
I've
here's
learned
something
from watching. Watching the fights. I need that. Yeah.
And that has kind of like, it was very much when I started journaling, it was super like, and maybe this is like a tip for people who, I know a lot of people, I talk to a lot of people, like I really see the value in it, but it's not how my mind works. Like I would struggle to journal. How I started doing it, like I didn't really struggle with it. I'm a reasonably kind of like comfortable written communicator. But like if you struggle with it, start out, come home from training and just dot point everything that you did that day. That you would be surprised how much, go back and read your dot points, and what you'll start to find is you're not actually just writing, you'll find little pieces of reflection in just dot pointing it. Because as you think about the whole, like for one, tell me, like I like to be like, okay, do you need to journal your training? Tell me everything you did in training yesterday. Yeah, right. Because you're not actually taking it home. You've got to start thinking about, like, you really need to take it home and give it that second run through. But then it's like, I think you can build it from, okay, now dot point everything we did. I skipped for this many minutes, and then we did this many rounds of pads. Now start to just shoot off that dot point and make a note about it. A little bit of feedback that you got, a little bit, how did you feel doing it? How was your energy? Because that's also going to be a really good point, that it's like, oh, I'm really finding that every Tuesday I feel like shit in training. What am I doing on Monday? Am I eating? Like, like you'll find patterns that are a lot easier to recognize than you didn't realize. But then from that, like I built all the way to like, I try to set myself a bit of like, I want to go and find like a podcast or an idea or from a book that I'm reading, and pull quotes from that and pull ideas from it and put that onto paper, and then try to like just take things from other forms of media that I would find useful and start adding that in. So at the end of the week, if I'm reflecting on a week of training, I also like to have ideas that have come out of podcasts and so that, like I keep a note in my phone of just like, if I'm ever listening to something and like there was a quote that resonated, or I've got like a little clip of audio, I just drop it in this one like disgusting ongoing Google Sheet to take home and put that in the book. And then I like to read through. It's become this much more like, it's super chaotic, but it's become this like, what used to just be dot points of everything that I did in training that day is now a collection of thoughts and ideas. And like, it's, I think, really useful at the end of a week. I like to take once a week, just read through everything I wrote down and take that. Like, it's again another further step back, because it's like you read through it and it's like a different person engaging with the same idea. You're like, oh, that was like,
yeah.
I was feeling a little oh, that's like like you'll almost be interested by your own takes. Like you'd be like, oh, that's a weird way to think. Because like I'll read through it again on a Sunday. You know, kind of like a rest day. Again, the mentality is like super different, and then have all these little like pieces of, you know, and I did something I've been struggling with in training might really resonate with something I read in a book, and just get that kind of lens. And at the end of the week, you've kind of got through, I take it through the highlighter and put my little sticky notes in it and stuff like that. Do you have like any kind of like, how's kind of the journaling style for you evolved? Do you do
I
anything
think
similar to that? Is it purely technical?
the way you just spoke about it reminds me of like, I didn't realize, but I used to struggle a lot with imposter syndrome and am I doing enough and things like that. And by reflecting on looking back at the week and looking back at the fight camp in general, you realize like everything you've done and how it's progressed and things like that, if that makes sense. So I think
Yes.
I have solved my imposter syndrome. I didn't realize. That helps quite a lot. But yeah, I will do on a training basis what I'm learning. In terms of like my podcast and other things, I actually have like a wall stick of like a wall in my bedroom where I have like actual quotes written down on stickers and my quotes in my notes in my phone that relate to not just Muay Thai, but me as a person and how I'm evolving in the fight camp, because I feel like it brings out different parts of you and it helps with fighting. Most importantly, like a film review, like I would probably, like every time I watch George Mann, I learn so much. So I write everything like in his fights. I watch Max's fights, I'll write them down. Watch Neve Kinahan, like I have certain fighters that I'll film study as well and I'll put in my journals. And I'll actually go back and watch the same fights like a year later, and see how my perspective's changed and grown.
Yeah.
Things like that. But yeah, my favorite is actually looking at my discussions that I have with my trainer. After I fight, we go to a cafe and we'll sit down and we'll rewatch my fight and getting his perspective, and I have it written there, and comparing that to the 4 weeks of prep that we've had for that specific fight and what correlates in terms of what I've done at training and what came out in the fight, and like certain things that have aided in my progress and things that aren't doing so well, things like that. Yeah.
Nice. Look, it's coming up to the end of the time here at the moment. Fortunately, fucking we could go on a lot longer.
Jane knows we're getting to that point where if you just let me go, it'll be 4 hours.
I'm so tired. But yeah, no. But awesome. Look, this has been great. There's been a lot of great gems here that people take away from and have a couple of re-listens over as well that I reckon people they'll take a lot of information from, and like really appreciate your time for us tonight.
Thank you for letting myself like expose the way I think to the Australian Muay Thai community.
No, always a fascinating kind of conversation for me. I think you and I are probably fairly similarly minded. We have some pretty similar approaches to this kind of thing. So very interesting. I've been following the way that you do things for quite some time, and yeah, interesting to kind of like go into a bit of detail. We of course appreciate all your support of the podcast over the years. You've been a massive advocate for us, which is we're super grateful that you have taken the time to listen as much as you have.
Yeah, I like it. I learn from listening to you guys. I wouldn't know like as much as I do with Muay Thai if it wasn't for getting different perspectives, and I enjoy your perspectives. Yeah.
And that's what we're here for. So that's always also on here. While we do have you, before we get off, you got some sponsors that you want to give a shout?
Yeah. All right. So firstly, Smith's Fitness, long-term, massive sponsor. Watch me like grow from a stick to a big muscly woman. So thank you, Smith, for being on board for like 3 years. Strength coach Jacob Parr from Peak. He's the GOAT. If anyone wants a good strength coach who actually knows his stuff and is passionate, hit up Jacob Parr. And then we've got Feud Fight Gear, Australian fight gear, made to stand out. Absolutely love their stuff. The shorts are so comfy. Like I am a short, like they have to be fitting a certain way, and they always do. And then we got Starbucks Flooring, local in Port Kennedy if you need your floorings done. Juiced Up Cannington, and then Victoria Recovery Systems for your like massage foam rollers and things like that. And shout out to my gym, Pre-Alliance Gym, David McVicker, my trainers Paul and Josh as well, and all my training partners. You guys are amazing. And shout out to my boxing coach from Fighter Fit, Danny. You're a legend. Is that everyone? Oh, my mum. Yeah.
Shout out to Mum.
That's it.
Yeah. That's all
Cool.
of them.
Nice, excellent. Yeah, Studio Bryony. We'll talk a little bit after the podcast as well. But everyone else, thanks for listening. Remember, we've got the YouTube's goals hit 1,000. So keep subscribing to us, keep liking, keep sharing. Spotify and Apple Podcasts, 5-star ratings, and catch you next time.
See ya.
Peace.